in Science is an organization at CCNY, and we seek to bring awareness and advocate for women in the scientific community. We promote diversity, equality, and inclusion, and through our events like this one today, we hope to share stories of women in science and women in STEM. So today we have a career panel featuring accomplished women in several similar but different STEM fields. Unfortunately, one of our panelists, Dr. Malika Dachi, was unable to make it today, but we are hoping to collaborate with her in future events, so definitely stay tuned for that. We still have three lovely panelists today. We have Dr. Kemi Babagbemi, who is the Vice Chair for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Faculty Scholar in Health Equity at the Cornell Center of Health Equity. And she is also an Assistant Professor of Clinical Radiology. We have Dr. Julianna LeMieux, who is a scientific writer on genetic engineering and biotechnology news, and she is also a microbiology professor at the City College of New York. And last, but certainly not least, we have Kristel Velez, who is an R&D associate at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals. So if you guys have any questions, definitely feel free throughout the panel to ask it in the chat. You can also unmute yourselves and say it out loud. Or if you want to ask a question anonymously, message me privately and I'll read it out loud for you. So I think that's it for the introduction. I'm going to hand it over to Maduna. She's our vice president, and she's going to start us off with a few questions.
Thank you, Sasha, for the lovely introduction. And again, thank you, our panelists, for attending this session today. And thank you, everyone who attends. And as Sasha said, we're happy to have you here and to hear your questions. So write them in the chat or as they develop in the discussion. So I will go ahead and start with the first question. So it is great to have you from very similar yet diverse focus of interest. And so the first question that we're all interested to hear from you all, and this again is addressed to all three of you, is how did you understand how to pursue this career? When was it clear for you that this is the career that you want to follow? And yeah, let's start with Dr. Babagbemi.
Sorry, I was waiting for you to pick somebody else, but I'm happy to go first. I knew very early on that I wanted to be a doctor. And I can remember the first time that I made that declaration in my head. I was about 6 years old. And my dad is an engineer, and he was fascinated with space. And I remember us watching the Apollo 11 moon landing together, putting up sheets with this projector, watching it. He sort of spurred my interest in math and science. And then everything sort of came together after I saw this wonderful documentary by the BBC called The Miracle, basically showed a developing embryo. And from that day on, I sort of made up my mind, and math and science became the thing. And I basically went through all the steps to make it more concrete for me. But it was very early for me when I decided to become a doctor.
That's great. How about Kristel?
I'm sorry, I mute myself because I'm working from home and there's a lot of sound. So if you hear something, it's probably something going on in my house. I gotta say, like, I don't think I have like the similar experience that a lot of people have, where as kids they kind of know. As a kid, I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. So I knew that there was like a lot of things that I didn't want to be a doctor. No offense to anyone that wants to be a doctor, it's great. And I knew I didn't want to be like a lawyer, and I didn't want to be a teacher, and there was just a lot of things I didn't want to do. And I like science. Like, I liked my biology class. I liked like participating in everything that had to do with science, and I wasn't bad at it. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just continue studying in college, go into something that had to do with science. And I wasn't bad at math, so I went into engineering, bioengineering, because it kind of combined the two. And then I guess it just kind of kept spiking my interest, and I kind of kept going in there. But yeah, I think it's okay to not really know what you want, kind of know what you don't want, and then kind of play it off from there. Yeah.
That is great indeed. And so before we go ahead with Julianna, I just want to make sure to tell everyone that our wonderful panelists agreed to address them by their first name. So just to ensure a more welcoming conversation. So we thank you for that. And so Julianna, well, what was your take on this?
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm kind of a mix actually of Kemi and Kristel. So I did my graduate work in microbiology. And so I really discovered in college in a couple of classes in undergraduate that my love for microbiology and how I just was so fascinated in every single aspect of how the tiny microbes are, wreak havoc. And so I decided to, and then when I graduated college, I didn't really know what I was going to do with that though, this love of microbiology, like how was I going to now kind of work with that? So I had one of those moments where I was so fortunate to have where I was hired to be a technician in a lab. And then that was it. So I loved lab work at the time. And I loved working in science and doing projects. And so I knew I loved microbiology, and then I was really loving lab work. And so then from there it became, the path was seemingly clear. I did my PhD and postdoc and then became an assistant professor, and then switched a little bit later on because I then discovered a second love I had, which was of writing. So then kind of moved out of there into science writing. But yeah, I think the throughout all of it though, there's just been this like very early love of microbiology.
Fantastic. That is really great. And so now let's go a little bit into the more the tricky parts of your career. So one question that we thought about a lot, and our trainees as well, is what was the hardest part in pursuing your career? And we should start now with Kristel, if you want to start.
Oh, hi. I think there's a lot of hard parts pursuing sciences, especially like as a woman, and I'm a minority too, so it kind of adds everything. But I guess like as hard as it is, it's also kind of helpful because there's like communities like this, like WinS, and a lot of clubs and things that kind of support women in science and STEM, and also minorities in science and STEM. I guess like that definitely was kind of hard. Like there's no like role model or people that you can kind of look up to that are similar to you. And also probably financially, it's not easy either when you come from like a first generation college kind of background, and you don't really have all of that, like your parents don't really have savings for you to go to college or a lot of things like that. So you kind of have to like pave your own way, almost kind of find your own way to do things. I mean, I had to file like my own FAFSA. Like no one knew how to do it in my family. Like there wasn't anyone that could tell me this is how you do it. Like, so I had to like find out a lot of things on my own. And I think that was probably the hardest part, just like as a teenager, just being like, I don't know what's happening, but I have to figure it out kind of.
Thank you for sharing this. I'm pretty sure we all appreciate that. So Kemi, how about you?
Yeah, so similar to Kristel, I'm also first generation, and I can't even think of which part was not hard, as she said. There were so many things that were hard. I actually moved here from Nigeria without my parents. So I was going through this process starting at about age 16, 15 in the United States, sort of without any, I don't even know how I did it, honestly. I'm thinking back now. Navigating the whole process of being pre-med, being in college, applying to schools. I knew nothing, and I absolutely had no guidance. And at that time, honestly, there were no clubs like this, particularly for minority students. So pretty much everything there was not even Google. I'm just honestly thinking how I did it. Trying to find information, trying to get anything was incredibly difficult. And I'm just glad I made it to the other side, because it was, I keep saying it was really hard. It was really hard on multiple levels, financially, emotionally, no guidance, no role models, very few support networks. Yeah.
Thank you. I really have to say that every time we hear the stories from you, all you three amazing women, we all find so many similarities, and yeah, it's really fascinating to hear from you. Julianna, how about your story, your hardship?
Yeah, I would say finding a path was something that took a lot of work. When I was doing my PhD, again, at that time, it was either you went to be an academic, you went into industry, or you were like a disappointment. Like that was it. You know, there were not other options. I mean, there were options. It's just we didn't know about them and we didn't know that they existed. So I think, and that's why, I mean, something like this is so wonderful, just to have exposure to careers and paths. And because if that very linear path of the academic researcher works for you, then that's terrific. But if it doesn't, or if for some reason, you know, you're inspired by something else, then I think figuring out how to do that is, at least at that time, you're really kind of on your own. And so I think that you know, just took a lot of soul searching and trying to, and also just practically trying to figure it out as well. Yeah.
Thank you. And I know this adds, like, there are so many layers to this story because we're all women, right? Like, and here, and we're trying to have a family, and that also adds another layer, which we will discuss soon about. But in the meantime, we have a question in the chat. So Sasha, do you want to go ahead and read it first, and then we'll move on to a different topic?
So I guess this question might be directed more towards Kristel since she's younger, but this question is, was there ever a time early on during school, or was there ever a difficult course that you took that made you think twice about the path that you're currently on? So I guess we can start with Kristel.
Heck yes, all the time. Literally, I started college. So, I mean, it was a while ago, I guess. Even though I just graduated with my bachelor's, I started college in 2012. So it was a while ago, I feel like. And in high school, I was pretty good. Like, I was a good student. I had 90s, like 80s. I was good. And so when I started at a private college, and I had the same major, bioengineering, and I went in and I was all like, oh, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna be so smart and everything. And I got like my first C's, and I was like, what is this? What is this, a 60 like in chemistry? Like, no way, like I am too good for this. So that's how I thought at the moment. And it kind of humbled me down because I was like, oh man, like this is actually hard. It's not as easy as I thought it was. And I did think a lot of times, like, I'm not going to continue this because I can't do it. Clearly, everybody else thinks these classes are easy. Everybody else is doing fine. They're getting 80s, 90s, and I'm here like struggling for this to just pass. But I guess like in a way, it kind of helped to humble me and also just like figure out how to study and how to move my time and figure out how to focus on things that actually mattered and all this stuff. And I mean, eventually I got there, so I graduated, so that's good. The career path wasn't straight or anything. I had to do a lot of different things, but yeah, there are moments where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not worth it. I should go into like journalism or something. I don't know, something in the arts. I can't do this. But if you really like it and you really find that passion, you'll find the way. You will.
That's great, thank you. And so this is actually a very good segue into the next question that I wanted to ask for Julianna. So you went to graduate school and then you chose microbiology as your favorite subject. How did you do that? And how did you choose your lab? It is kind of tricky to choose. You have a very little room to choose. Depends on how many rotations you're allowed to do, 3 or 4. In Europe, you're actually not allowed to do any. So it's really, you just have to do research and paper. how was it for you? How did you know that this is the right lab and the right field to carry on?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So I actually want to go, so between my undergrad and my PhD, I did this 3-year stint as a technician. And as I had mentioned, and I went, and so what I didn't mention is that was in a neuroscience department. And actually the investigator was working on the retina. And but I had said that I knew I loved microbiology, right? So I thought, well, this is not really inherently something I'm super interested in. But my PI at the time, the person who hired me, Elio Raviola, he said, it doesn't matter what the overall question is for you right now. What matters is that you will be trained well in molecular biology. And I said, sold. Like, I'm great. That's what I needed at that time. You know, I needed a really good training in the basics. He said, then you can go and you go ask your questions, you know, and go. And that's exactly what I ended up. I mean, of course I was interested in neuroscience when I spent those 3 years there. I mean, it was fascinating, but then I decided I would go pursue microbiology. So I just think that that's something I wanted to bring up because, you know, early on, I think there's 2 different questions, which is like, how's the training, but then also what's the question you're asking? So then I went and I did 4 rotations, a virology lab, a yeast lab, all in the microbiology department, and then 2 bacterial pathogenesis labs. And I think it was a combination of the research, which I was really fascinated. I worked on pathogenic Streptococcus pneumoniae, and also the community. Though, I mean, I really felt like choosing by community, I mean the lab, like choosing a lab community that I liked, that I thought would be supportive, an advisor that I thought would be supportive. I mean, I know you choose these labs after just a very small time in them, right? But I had gotten a very good sense that it would be a supportive place, a place that where I could, both do great science and also be in a space that would, help me be successful. So that was and I accepted me. So I guess that was probably also part of it too.
That's amazing advice. Thank you.
I have to say something. Julianna
Yes.
mentioned a name that just brought back, I almost cried when you said Elio Raviola.
Me
Because
too.
Raviola,
Elio Kemi.
he taught me in my first year of medical school, and he solidified my love of medicine. The guy is an awesome teacher. So as soon as you said that name, my heart just skipped. That's all I want to say.
This is really amazing because I am an alumni from my PhD. I did part of my PhD in Enrica Stretoi's lab in Italy, who was an alumni of Elio Raviola, and everything in her lab, the microscopy that I learned and everything is the heritage that she got from Elio. Amazing. I think this is brilliant.
That's really a small world. Although of course he's, taught so many people. And I just like you as well, Kemi, I consider myself one of the very luckiest that I got to work with him for 3 years. So yeah, that's really fun that we could kind of bring that into this conversation.
This is wonderful. But Kemi, now I really want to ask you, you decided to be a radiologist. So why and how did you get there? And of course, like that is a decision that happened fast or happened in like after some years of debate?
Yeah. So it's, I've been very much influenced in my career path by the amazing teachers I've had over the course of my life. And I think Kristel said it, like I knew going through medical school, what I didn't want to do as I rotated through all the different clinical rotations. So I was like, no, that's not going to be me. I don't like that. But I wasn't quite clear what I wanted to be. So there were 3 areas that truly fascinated me: psychiatry, radiology, and emergency medicine. So I had to, as sort of the time came to sort of make a decision, I had to sit down and do a whole self-assessment decide what about each thing I liked, what I didn't like, and which one did I see myself being for the length of my career. And radiology won out, mostly because radiologists are not only people who sort of cross multiple lanes in medicine, they're also teachers of physicians and teachers of patients. And the best educators I had in my time, apart from Dr. Raviola, of course, were the radiologists, and how they pulled everything together, made sense of complex disease processes, and how they presented in an imaging form. So for me, it was an easy choice, but I would still tell people my job still requires me to know a little bit about psychiatry, so I still use it every day. And I do emergency radiology, so I really feel like I've not given anything up in all the things I liked. I just found a way to put them all together in the best way that worked for me.
That is brilliant. Thank you. So now switching gears towards more personal and work-life balance topic, which is always a very interesting one. So as always, we really welcome our male friends who and colleagues who are joining us today in this discussion, because this is really, we all rely on their help and their support to have a flourishing and successful career. But being a woman, a professional woman, definitely brings a lot of challenges. And how did you, the question is for all of you, how did you put in balance and how do you manage this, being so successful at your career and so successful in your personal life and in your interactions with your dear ones? This is really for everyone, so Kristel, go ahead.
I'm pretty early still in my career, and I'm like, I still don't have a family of my own or anything. So I feel like it's easier for me to kind of find a work-life balance. I mean, I don't have kids or anything, so I definitely see how my coworkers who do, like my managers and people who I work with who are women and have like a whole family and have kids, and like how hard it must be for them to work and also just come home and then have to like make dinner and do all of these things. And I really admire them for that. I mean, I have no idea how I'm going to juggle that in the future. But I mean, as of now, it's not, I'm not going to say it's easy, because there's always some degree of difficulty to balancing work and life, but I think it's a little more straightforward for me. Like I get home, I could just eat and rest and relax and not watch after kids or anything. But yeah, so I think probably maybe the other two panelists might have more of a good answer.
Juliana, go ahead. I saw you.
I can jump in, sure. So I would say, and it was something I touched on before, actually, when I was saying why I chose my, why I settled on my thesis lab, would be supportive community. And I think that means supportive community both at work and at home. And so, you know, I have an extremely supportive partner, and I know, you know, although we don't have family here, like it doesn't necessarily need to mean partner, right? It can mean parents, you know, whatever that support network looks like. I think a support network is really crucial, or I should say has helped me a lot, you know, at home. And then, but also at work. I mean, my PhD advisor had, I had one child in graduate school during my PhD. I had one during my postdoc, and then one when I was a faculty member. So really just runs the whole kind of gamut there. But at each step of the way, my PhD advisor had small children. My postdoc advisor had small children. So, you know, I think that there was an environment there and a support system where if I said, look, I've got to go, someone's, you know, sick or whatever, then that was really probably critical, actually. Especially now that I look back on it. Yeah. So supportive community, I think, is my answer.
Kemi, thank you.
So for those people who are going to be pre-med, I'm going to say one of the main things you need to do is abandon the need to be perfect and embrace imperfection in all its forms. Because the idea of balance, to me, is a very difficult one because people think about both sides being equal when you think about a balance. But I think for those of us in medicine, sometimes the balance is tilted depending on where you are in the stage of your career. And you sort of have to be ready to sort of embrace that. So I had my children late, mostly because the balance was tilted in my early career towards just going through the motions of medical school and residency and things of that sort. But I wish I'd known then that I could have tilted it a little bit more to prioritizing family and things like that. So at every stage of the game, I say, once you've identified that the balance may need to be tilted depending on where you are, you should be doing self-assessment, sort of a self-audit, and learning to prioritize which part of your life you want to put above others at different stages. Honestly, I don't think there's anything as work-life balance. It's basically doing your best at every point. With children, whenever you think you've balanced anything, I tell you the very next morning, it's done. So embracing imperfection, doing what you need to do when it's needed, prioritizing yourself and the things that matter to you at different points are sort of the way I've learned to do it. And then the idea of a support network, as Julianna said, is crucial. Your choice of a life partner matters. Where your community matters, whether it's church, family, colleagues, and co-workers, they all factor in, as she stated. So that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely amazing. I really cannot thank you enough, because we all have these worries, and again, this happens to we ask these questions at every stages of our career, right? When we're very early stages, early on, and then as we proceed in our career. So really thank you, all three of you, for waiting with this important aspect. So since you all touched base on the idea of community and support from your networks, how do you engage in networks, and how what would be the one advice for our attendees today? How should they approach networking and relationship, and how can they build this community that is so crucial for their support in their professional life? Julianna, do you want to start, please?
Yeah, I learned a lot about this, especially as I was moving away from academia and then into, my current job, which is not in academia, because I think that although I did have a big academic network at that time, it's different if you're then moving into a job where the network is going to be totally different. And so I was given advice, a couple of pieces of it. One is just to use the platforms that are available, like LinkedIn. Just start. It takes a while, right, to start building those things. So start now. Why not? Get those things up and running, because they can be really useful. They really can. Job boards, whether it's your network, in school, at work, but also I would say one thing, the network I had built in academia kind of was came to me very organically. It was people I met, people I, saw in conferences, things like that. But then there's actively building your network, and that takes effort. And one thing I can't emphasize enough is the value of cold emailing people, just reaching out to people, whether it's social media or over email or I know we don't do this in person, but when we're back, just introducing yourself, talking to people, and asking people for advice and help, because I did a lot of that, just asking people about your job, when I was changing careers. And people are so willing to help, because everybody's had help along the way, right? So they would go out to lunch with me, grab a coffee, just pick up the phone. And each of those conversations really informed my thinking in a new way and opened up some new people in a new network. And so I would say all of those things put together are, at the end of the day, when it it's time to apply for that job or reach out for something, there'll be someone who's linked to someone who can help you. And maybe it'll be Elio Raviola, but maybe it'll be somebody else.
Yeah, as we learned, there are so many intersections in these Venn diagrams. It is amazing indeed. Kristel, how about you? You work in industry. In industry, it's very important to have as many connections as possible. I think we all want to learn. How do you do that? How do you start to begin with?
Well, I'm pretty early on in my career right now, but I guess like pretty simple advice I can give, and just like life advice, is just be nice and be considerate to people. You never know who you're gonna meet along the way, and just be nice to your classmates because you never know where they're gonna end up. Like you literally never know when you meet someone you think, oh, this kid's never gonna go anywhere, and they end up getting like a really great job or being someone really important in the future. So be nice and be considerate to people. Say hello, say good morning. I know it's like the social anxiety, especially for like millennials, Gen Z, we're all like, we have to call people on the phone. Like, what is this? You can't just email them. But yeah, just literally try to talk to people, try to get to know them, and be nice to them. And just that kind of makes that relationship, because if you're nice to people, they'll be like, oh, I remember her, like she said good morning to me all the time. So when you try to ask them for a favor in the future, they'll be more willing to, if they know you a little better, if they know that you also are nice. So yeah, be nice and be social to people. Try to get rid of the anxiety a little bit and just go for it.
That is wonderful indeed. Kemi, how about you? I know that doctors in general, I think like I personally find it very hard to email a doctor because I know they're very busy. And so I only do that when I have like a real reason. So that's why I always find it very difficult to find network with among the MDs as we do in people that work in academia. So what would be the advice that you have in regards to this aspect?
You know, the truth is, when there's a will, there's a way. People have contacted me on LinkedIn out of the blue, and I could just see the passion and whatever they were interested in. And even though it may have taken me 8 weeks to respond, I responded. I think for medicine, one key way is to be part of the sort of specialty specific organizations that exist. For example, in radiology, we have a big umbrella organization that brings a lot of people together. So whether you're a medical student or a resident, this provides you sort of exposure to a whole breadth of people. And honestly, you can, if you find somebody who has an area of interest, you can randomly email them. If you email 10, chances are one will respond to you. So I think whatever means necessary to get what you need to get or the exposure you need is totally fine. Twitter is also very big now. Med Twitter is very important for people who are pre-med. So I'm sort of generation not, it starts with X or something. So I'm new to all this social media stuff, but I see the value in it, in that you could really get exposure to things you normally would not get exposure to without paying any money, by almost doing a sophisticated type of eavesdropping on things you're interested in. And then random people become names that you know, and you can research them more, research their labs, research their areas of interest, and basically go from there. So I find for medicine, Med Twitter is actually now a big tool for people making connections and learning about fields of interest and actually making real connections that become real life connections. So that's what I would say, but pretty much go for it. Like all people can say is just no or just ignore you. So just reach out.
Thank you for
that. Is amazing. Thank you. Just 1 second. I really want to take this opportunity to remind our attendees that if we were to do this event in person, we will have like a little bit of social afterwards in which you can just share some information with the speakers. But I will encourage all of you to do the same in this setup as well, and just say hi if you wanted to all our amazing speakers. I think these events are a great opportunity to build this network. So please keep that in mind and reach out to us if you don't know how to reach out to our speakers. So Sasha, do you want to go ahead and read one of the questions from our attendees?
Yeah, so I'm going to shift the gear a little bit. We have some questions in the chat. Tamara actually asked a question that I feel like is more directed towards Dr. Babagbemi. So she asked, what advice do you give someone who is in their 40s and is beginning science all over again? So Dr. Babagbemi, so you could.
How do I say it? If you want to do something, your age is not an obstacle. So in medical school, I had two classmates that were in their mid to late 40s when many of us were in our 20s, early 20s at all. And she is an amazing pediatrician today. I actually worked with her on a conference yesterday. So starting all over again is fine. There's no age limit. If you are dedicated to it and you dedicate your time to it, you can do anything at any point. So I don't think the age should be an obstacle to you at all. And I saw that Tamara also asked the question about if ever there was a time that made you think twice. And I want to say out loud that I actually failed my calculus in my pre-med curriculum. And that was a time when I thought, oh my God, this is it. My dream is over. But it wasn't true. I just needed to recalibrate, find a way. And I ended up doing exceedingly well in the course because that test was dropped, thank God. So you got to find a way. Just stick to it. Just keep going.
Great, thank you. I know you also touched on the topic of imperfection before, and Joyce asked a very similar question. She said, do you have any thoughts or insights on embracing and moving on from failure?
Yeah, so failure to me is just one step in the game of life. Doesn't define you. And basically what I see failure is a way for you and a chance for you to sort of recalibrate yourself, maybe learn from whatever was happening that led to what you've declared a failure. But in all my failures, I've always learned a big lesson, and that lesson has made me better. So you should never think of failure as a finale. It is just a point in time and space. And, one of the greatest advice people told me is like, don't dwell on it, move on to the next step. So you'll keep hearing me saying, keep going. So you failed something, all right, don't dwell on it, next. That's what you basically have to have in your mind, because it's just a point in time. It's not going to define who you are or who you become in the final analysis.
This is brilliant, and I really appreciate this encouragement because again, like we all deal with that very often, and so this is actually a very good transition into asking you, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? That is something that I as trained as in Eastern Europe, I didn't know that's a thing. I learned in my adult life, and turns out this is really a topic that we can actually have a whole panel on this particular topic. And how do you deal with that, and what helped you in your career so far to kind of leave that behind and move on? And I would like to ask all three of you this. Maybe Kristel, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I laughed because I literally deal with this like all the time, and anyone that's ever worked with me knows that I'm like all the time I'm the worst at like self-deprecation and just like I'm like, why am I here? Why am I allowed to do this science? Like, who is letting me do this? I don't know why I'm doing this. I do it all the time, so I can't really say like, oh, this is the solution, this is how you get over it. I think it's kind of like a work in progress. You kind of learn how to deal with it. But I think that, like Juliana was saying, like your network and surrounding yourself with like the people, I think that like really helps, whether it's your family, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's people that you work with, your friends. Literally people that like support you and actually sometimes believe in you more than you believe in yourself many times, because sometimes I'm just like, I don't even know how I can do this. And a lot like my friends or my family would be like, what are you talking about? You are totally capable of doing this. And even though it sounds just like words that come out from them, it really does do something to you, because you're like, oh, you know what? My professor said this. He believes in me, even if I don't believe in me. And so you kind of like work for those people, and kind of in that way, indirectly, it kind of helps you to move forward and kind of be like, you know what? Maybe I'm not an imposter. Maybe I'm actually, worthy of doing this and being here.
Amazing. How about you, Juliana?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of voices, right? Whether they're coming from inside my own head or they're coming from the outside that could be saying you're not good enough or you can't do this. In fact, I want to just share a story I heard just last week where that Jennifer Doudna was sharing. The Nobel Prize winner, I'm sure needs no introduction, but you do know that when she was in high school, she was speaking to her guidance counselor, and he said, what do you want to be? And she said, a scientist. And he said, oh, that's not, I forget the quote, but basically that's not a good job for a girl or a woman. And to Jennifer Doudna, who's now a Nobelist. So those voices can be very loud, telling you can't do it, and coming from outside or inside. And so I think wherever the voices are coming from, but certainly I know your question was about imposter syndrome. So from inside, I think it's really, for me, like taken practice and been an active process to say, no, I can either listen to that voice and it can bring me down, or I can take that and, try to work around it and succeed over it. And I think that it's not easy, it's not easy to do that, but I think it's just something that just over time has gotten, it's still, everybody, I still have it, but it's like, just, I guess it's just something you just have to work on, just actively trying to do that. I guess that.
I really appreciate bringing the external voices in, because I am sure that I always believe, right, that imposter syndrome is something that you have and it becomes this monster in you, but it's actually seeded by a small comment or a very like a expression in someone's face and so on. So I really appreciate this. And of course, now we would like to hear from Kemi about this, both external voices as well as internal.
So my perspective is a little bit different. So only about 2% of the doctors in the United States are Black women. And so we exist in spaces where we're not a predominant force or presence. And so the external aspect of the imposter syndrome is actually a greater one than the internal one, because we're constantly made to feel like we do not belong here. And so if you think about what drives imposter syndrome, it's basically you don't feel like you can do what you are doing, even though you've been doing it. But I think in the context in which I exist, it makes it a lot worse when people don't expect you to be there or don't even want you to be there. And so I think dealing with imposter syndrome, to me, I think the fight is mostly to tackle the external voices that wish to exclude you from the space that you're existing in. And so making sure that more of us go into STEM careers, end up in healthcare and things like that, where you constantly don't have to search for people who look like you, I think does a lot to help dull that voice, which I think for many of us are very much external. Somebody had to say somewhere, somehow, just like they told the Nobelists that, that's not for you. And then you internalize it. And so dealing with external forces that wish to exclude women and underrepresented minorities is a big part of what I focus my attention in. That being said, I have it every day. I have it before I give any presentation, any PowerPoint on anything. I doubt myself to the nth degree. I'm going to be like, why did they even ask me to do this? So, but it's something I've internalized.
Thank you for that. I feel like even as an undergrad, a graduate student, postdoc, everyone of different levels, they experience imposter syndrome to some degree. This next question, just for time's sake, I'm going to direct towards Julianna. It's one in the chat. Deborah asked, what advice would you give to a freshman that's interested in science but doesn't know which field exactly? And is it too early to apply for internships, especially with no experience or skills in lab?
Oh yeah, no, great question, of course. Yeah, so interested in science and doesn't know which field. I mean, I was the exact same way when I started out in college. I went in as a bio major, so interested in science, didn't know what kind. And I would say just like soak it all up, right? Go take different classes, read different, you know, books, just talk to people, go to talks. I mean, you have fantastic talks. Well, I'm not sure actually if you're at CCNY, but anyway, wherever you are, go to the talks, meet people doing research, and just see what, I mean, I just really, my microbiology passion was seated just in an intro to microbiology class. You know, I just was in class and I just really liked it and kept learning about it and reading about it. So, and to your second question, no, it's definitely not too early. And I mean, I didn't really have a lot of lab skills coming out of undergraduate. And so there's, you know, there's definitely time. So I would say like two things: it's never too early. If you want to get experience, definitely try to get that experience. Like Kemi was saying, you know, knock on doors, you know, go and just see, because also working in different labs is really beneficial as well, because you might work in a plant bio lab or a whatever, you know, micro lab or a neuroscience lab, and one just might be a match. You know, it's just really finding that match. But also don't worry, because there's a lot of time also, you know, like I really didn't do full, I mean, I didn't really do research, like my own project, until after college. So there's opportunities, summer programs. I mean, yeah, but if you're interested in it, definitely it's because you'll love it, you know, you'll love it. So it'll be definitely worthwhile.
It is really, really unfortunate that the time flies so quickly that we don't get a chance to go through all these questions that we might have in the chat, and the ones that we prepare talking to our trainees and to our people in our community as well. So I would just like to open the last question to all three of you again. And so the question would be, if you were to go back in time, what would be the, when you were an undergrad or early stage in your career, what would be your advice that you would give to yourself about the career path, about how to pursue different ideas, and even how to interact with people? Yes, whoever wants to start first. I think this is a really ample question, and feel free to start when you are ready. Kemi, do you like? Thank you.
I can try. I think one thing I tell people now, and I it may sound so cliche, is remember that you are enough. Just eliminate self-doubt as much as you can. Find the things that you need to do, and that will make a path for the things that you want to do. You really need to constantly do that. Just get back into yourself. Try not to compare yourself with anybody else. Everybody's journey is different. And I think, you know, what I always did was sort of compare myself to the previous self, always trying to improve as I went along. I would go back and tell myself, you're enough and you can do this. So just keep on going.
Fantastic. Kristel?
I guess I have more technical advice. For me, I think one of the most important things is to know that your classes aren't everything, your grades aren't everything, and most importantly, try to get experience. So kind of like that, how the question came up about the internships and kind of getting experience, like please, I cannot stress enough, get an internship. If you're a freshman, that's literally the place to start. Or if you can't get an internship because you have no experience to get the internship, email professors, just look at their research. And if you're interested in science and you want to get that lab experience and you're like, how am I going to get this lab experience? Look up your professors, look at what they're doing. You're interested in microbiome, look up the microbiome professors, email them, be like, I'm interested in this work. Can I shadow a PhD student? Can I shadow your work? Can I just like come in and help you do scut lab work? And there, it's kind of like where you start. Maybe you'll start doing something and you'll be like, I hate this. And so you'll move on to something else. You'll email another professor. Just try to get your hands and feet wet and get experience. It's not all about the grades. The grades won't get you they'll get you someplace, but they won't get you as far as if you have experience. So get experience.
Thank you. Amazing practical answer. Indeed. Juliana, how about you?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking about it. I mean, this is Kemi and Kristel have given such good advice. I don't know what I can add, but I guess along my way, I would say, stay open to things that come your way and try them, because, you know, they might be really terrific. I mean, I had an opportunity, I was asked to teach a class in prison for the Barred Prison Initiative. And I said yes, and it was an experience that changed me and was amazing. And like, so if something comes your way, try it. I guess that's would be my first piece of advice. And then also, just keep thinking. I mean, as somebody who really changed careers, you know, I mean, I know I stayed in science, but went from being a tenure track professor to a science writer. I guess I would say just so stay open to things that are being offered to you, but also be open to what what you want as well, because it took a long time for me to really listen to my internal voice that was saying, you know, maybe you really want to try this writing thing. So I would just say stay open. And if you do end up doing something, you can always learn from whatever you're doing. Like, even if it's not, you know, necessarily where you want to be right this second, there's something to be learned there. And there's value in that experience. And so just try to get what you can out of everything you can out of what you're doing right now, because I'm sure if you do, that some other door is going to open and come your way.
This is really, like Christine said, really inspiring, and we couldn't hope for more, for such a range of answers to this question. It is amazing. And as I said, we are here in the audience, we're at different levels of our career. So I think this applies for all of us. Thank you all. If there are other questions in the chat, this is the time to do it. If not, we will, Sasha, do you think, is there any question that has not been answered? If not, please reach out to us.
But I just want to quickly, for a plug-in for WinS, we do have a mentorship program. So if you guys do want to join, please reach out to us via email or our Instagram. We do connect you with mentors ranging from science fields. We have scientists, we have professors. So that would be good. I know Deborah asked the question, you are a freshman, so definitely that would help with networking for sure. I'm going to hand back to Miruna if you have anything else to say.
Thank you. Yes, so before we do the last part, which is the conclusion and a small announcement that the Women in Science organization we have, I would just like to ask our three speakers if they are comfortable to share their email addresses for people that are attending today's, if you can do that in the chat for everyone, we will really appreciate that. If not, people can just like reach out to us and we will try to find a way to connect you with the speakers and with the people that you're interested to connect with. So with that, I would like to again thank you all. It is really emotional every time I hear amazing women speaking, because you're each very inspirational for me. And again, I like some of you mentioned, I did not have such a thing when I was an undergrad, and I really appreciate it. And I think this is really changing the perspective of people attending that are at early stages of their career. So with that, I would like to switch to Marilyn, who has some announcements. Women in Science is changing leadership every year, and so this is the right time to announce the new board. So thank you all for participating. Marilyn, take it away, please.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Miruna, for introducing. Again, my name is Marilyn, and I am a current member of the WinS board, and I wanted to introduce to you guys all the new members that we are accepting into our 2021 to 2022 WinS board year. But first, before I introduce the new members, I wanted to give a special shout out and a huge thank you to our current president, Zipporah Schwat. Zipporah has been president of WinS for 2 years, and I've worked with her personally for 1 year, and I will say from my own experience with her, she has contributed unconditionally to our team, and her work is incredibly impactful, and we will do our best to continue onwards with your work, and we'll continue to spread our mission the way that you have in these past few years with WinS. So with that being said, I'd love to introduce our new board members. And we are so excited to have them start out with us. We have Nabila Mustafa as our secretary, Naomi Gaggi as our events coordinator, Monica Scotti as our assistant events coordinator, Miriam Franklin and Morgan Marira as our historians, and last but not least, Maria Bolanos and Samantha Coppolo as our co-directors of communications. Yeah, and we also have our current members that are returning for more positions this coming year. And they are Joyce Chan and Shanika Christopher, who will be our co-directors of mentoring. We have Dr. Myrna Vignetegla, who was having our conversation with us today. She will be our director of outreach. We have Denise Morin continuing with us as general advisory. We have Sasha Sulaiman, who is also part of our conversation today, as our vice president. And we have myself as president. So we're very excited to continue on with the school year and the new WinS board. If the new members are with us today, if you guys would like to just say a quick hello and introduce yourself really quick. Go for it, Monica.
Hi, everyone. How are you? I just want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be part of the WinS board as the assistant event coordinator. I'm an international studies major here at CCNY, but I have a profound interest in women's health and wellness and the science behind it. I advocate for breaking the stigma surrounding hormonal issues and endocrine disorders that are common among young women today. I educate women on the benefits of incorporating holistic practices into their daily routine to heal their bodies and hormones. I'm looking forward to bringing my previous experience as an event coordinator and in sales to the WinS board to create educational and empowering events. And I look forward to meeting everyone.
Woohoo!
Thank you.
We can unmute and cheer for everybody. We have a great team coming, and also to cheer and congratulate the panelists today.
Thank you.
Yeah, is anyone else on board who is new and incoming that would like to speak in? Go for it, Samantha. Yeah.
I was trying to find the raised hand option, and I was just getting lost in the whole situation. But hi, my name is Samantha Coppolo, and I'm a current sophomore at CCNY. I'm majoring in business administration with intent of information systems. So potentially I would like a career in becoming a data scientist. And I'm really excited to be taking the position as co-director of communications for the WinS board. I think that today, firstly, I want to say thank you all for the panelists. You really provide great support for and uplifting messages and of empowerment for me, you know, going into sophomore. I look forward to, you know, my future endeavors, and I think your advice really helped me coming forward, and I'm really excited for this position and empowering women in different fields. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Welcome, Samantha and Monica. We hope to have a successful, wonderful year of growth coming. And thank you so much, everyone who came to this event, to our speakers who had a wonderful, inspiring conversation with us, to everyone who asked the questions. That definitely helped us have a nice, strong topic to converse about. Anything else we want to say, Mirna? All good? Okay.
No, that was it. Again, thanks to our wonderful speakers. We will be in touch for sure. And again, thank you everyone for participating today. Very inspirational.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Thank you and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
There is a square of somebody. Do you see that too? It says 6 participants, but I can't see who the 6th person is.
No, it's us.
Oh,
Yeah, that may be Shanika.
the name didn't show up for me on the screen, but it shows up there. Woo!